Hi, and welcome back to You Haven't Seen What? A married couple's quest to rectify the wrongs of their partner never seeing culturally relevant movies.
I'm Parry.
I'm Joelle, and we're married
Yes.
because it's still going.
Yeah, the show is still on, so we must still be married.
Still married.
It's the only gauge I have at this point.
Is it really? I say I love you every morning.
Yes, and I think I say it back. Sometimes it's too early and I'm tired, but I believe I'm always saying it too.
You do.
Okay, good. Thank you for reminding me.
So this week, we go ahead and review Midnight Madness, which barely cuts in at a 1980 release.
Yeah, it's truly more 70s than 80s in its sensibilities.
No. Why do you have to do that? It's totally cheesy 80s.
It starts out with like a disco number and
still disco.
And they're on roller skates with the high socks, and it was still in the early 80s, technically speaking, yes.
Still disco.
But it is definitely that blurred line between the decades.
Yes. So just to quickly synopsize, since I was the one who has seen the film, loved the film. This is one of my childhood favorites. I am deeply embedded with Midnight Madness for a long time. So it's 5 college teams go on an epic scavenger hunt around LA at night, and shenanigans ensue. I think that pretty well sums it up.
Shenanigans, definitely.
Total shenanigans.
All about shenanigans.
All shenanigans. One section that we definitely have to cover is our favorite quote. So mine is at the beginning when Adam, the yellow team leader, says to Flinch, "You've got to stand up and face life." And basically telling him to go for the gusto.
Yeah, we'll hear about Flinch's gusto later on.
Oh boy. Why'd you have to go to the dark place?
You're going to go there later anyway.
I might go there later. But what were your overall impressions of the movie, having not watched it as a childhood movie, but having watched it as an adult?
I felt like I was having a flashback from experiences that weren't even my own.
Really? How so?
I just felt transported back in time to a different age. It is an insane movie, and in the best possible way. It is full of completely impossible scenarios and situations that are utterly ridiculous, but only as the best cheesy movies can pull them off. And so it felt very much like a drive-in movie or something that, you'd go on a date to and do more making out than watching of the movie, but it is pure fun in almost every possible way.
And that's really what it is. I mean, this is a great cheesy 80s movies that, yes, does borderline on the 70s because there is like a disco scene. There's definitely corduroy happening abundantly everywhere.
And a van with flames on the side.
That's right, flames van. And there is sort of that, but there's this awesome campiness. I guess I should back up and say this is actually a Disney film.
Under the Buena Vista label.
Well, under the Buena Vista label at first, and then Disney claimed it later when it got released to DVD.
Okay.
So they actually claim it now. They weren't claiming it for a very long time. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but this is actually a Disney movie.
Yeah, I can see why they would have put it under their more adult label because of some of the situations, but it's definitely from a more innocent era than we got into later in the 80s where there was always gratuitous breasts or nudity, and there's none of that in there. It's actually...
Oh, no, you got a couple of... Not full.
Yeah, it's more hinted at. And it's still in that sort of like, from a modern sensibility, it's going to make you sort of cringe a little bit. But it's not as bad as we got further into the 80s, and they felt like they really needed to show more to up the ante each time in that teen sex romp kind of comedy. Like we talked about with April Fool's Day, that there was so much focus on sex for a portion of it. And this one hints at it, but really doesn't focus there. And it's part of what makes it so much fun is we don't get hung up in that junk.
No, it's all about the competition, obviously.
That's right. It's the great all-nighter.
It is the great all-nighter. So basically, these 5 teams are on the scavenger hunt through LA, and the ringleader is Leon,
who everyone seems to know. They distribute all of these invitations out to the groups on campus, and they all have to show up
And
at
colored envelopes.
Yes, because each team has a color. And each team is also a stereotype. You've got the nerd team, the jock team. They really play out that way. But they show up at this apartment, and looking like a James Bond villain, Leon spins around in his chair, and there's his henchwomen. And everyone seems to know who he is. They all go, Leon, as though who couldn't know Leon?
Well, the best part is that, so they get this invitation in this random colored envelope individually, and they all decide to go to this random place. They have no idea really where it is. They have no idea whose apartment it is. They don't know that it's obviously Leon's apartment because they all scream his name. So they're going to a stranger's house due to an invitation they were given by a girl on roller skates.
I can see why the jocks would show up. But for everyone else, it seems like maybe this is an opportunity to get...
No, but they don't show up in groups. Only the team leaders show up.
Yeah. So
it's not in groups.
It just seems like, I guess coming from a 21st century perspective, you feel like maybe they're going to get robbed.
Basically.
Or worse.
And they're sitting there, like in a stranger's apartment, trying to determine.
And the apartment is weird in that it has like game items everywhere. There's giant cards and roulette wheels and just all kinds of game-related paraphernalia sitting around everywhere.
Game master, and it was game control, obviously.
But they didn't know that yet.
Well, not yet. So basically, he challenges these 5 groups who have, inner conflict or intra-conflict. In both, actually, in some groups. So they have these conflicts with one another. And, the jocks are always razzing the nerds are always putting down the jocks, the sorority girls are always getting razzed by the jocks. There's a lot of jocks happening. And then the blue team, who's sort of like the outcasts or bad guys, I guess, situated, they're always harping on the yellow team, which is all the goody two shoes, school counselors and all that such.
And again, very much the stereotype. The bad group, they're all bad. And the good group, they're all good. Well, I don't know. We'll get to relationship of one with his brother. But, they reject the game at first. When Leon first presents it to them, none of them want to do it. But he already knows that because their group's all in conflict with each other, that they will eventually want to get the better of each other. And what more perfect way to do it than through the great all-nighter. Although I was kind of confused as to how Harold's dad knows about the great all-nighter. He doesn't want to do it, and his dad tells him, you need to better the other kid by, basically shames him into going to do the race. But where did he hear about it?
I mean, this was all over town, obviously.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it was on the news and
all over LA.
On the internet. Oh, wait, no, pre-internet.
Pre-internet.
So, yeah, I don't know how this got broadcast to everyone.
Maybe somebody told, like, Melio, his good friend, Andy Tennant.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about Melio. My question with Melio was his teeth real, or was he wearing fake teeth? They look like fake teeth to me, because both of his really dumb henchmen always have their teeth sticking out, sort of bucktooth style, and it looks, although
I don't know.
I guess he could just be like a Gary Busey.
This is like 1980, and the production notes are so few and far between. Let's be honest. Pre-internet really leaves a lot to be desired, and the fact that Disney sort of rushed everyone through this, the amount of production notes are just, they're there, but they're not the same.
Well, we'll get to the filmmakers later on, but they were really young too. This was a very
23, 24.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
So let's, I guess, get to a good nitty gritty part. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay.
That was pretty good.
I can see it. We're getting there.
All right, yeah.
Just give it another 50 episodes.
So what did you think was good about the movie?
Of course, the observation bubble on top of the van.
Okay.
I mean, that's what was good
Great,
about it.
great. I'm so glad that the observation bubble on the blue van won your heart. Anything else?
Because I really want one of those on my car.
Oh my gosh. You're so old right now. Such a grandpa.
You know, I think, like I was saying before, is that it is a lot of fun in a very innocent way, but it actually has some deeper moments in the puzzles themselves. I enjoyed trying to figure out what the answers were.
The SSI Tari is mixed up and blind.
I have to admit, I did not figure that one out or any of the others before they did. So, and I've been on one of these scavenger hunts, and I...
That was influenced by this movie.
It was, yes. And I think I did get some of the answers, but I don't remember if they were quite as intense as these. Because remember, Leon had spent a year planning this great all-nighter.
Well, this great all-nighter, I mean, just in the... So really you're going with the observation bubble as your good?
No, I'm going to go with the clues.
You're going to go with the clues.
I think the clues were great. The clues were a lot of fun.
All right, the C is reversed. SSI Tari is mixed up and blind.
Even something as simple as hug me.
Oh, huge M.
Exactly. Yeah, they were fun.
Huge M.
I thought that what I thought is, if nothing else, it will inspire other people to create great all-nighters.
Yes, it will, as a matter of fact. So my good was definitely the concept. It was the great all-nighter and this idea of the scavenger hunt through the city and somebody taking the time and painstaking effort in order to go ahead and pull this off. I mean, Leon is pulling off things at LAX. He's pulling off things at Pabst Blue Ribbon. Pabst Blue Ribbon. Oh, Pabst Blue Ribbon.
I know there's a Budweiser brewery in LA, but I didn't know there was a Pabst.
There was a Pabst that got torn down.
Oh, that's why I never worked next to that. The Budweiser brewery I worked down the street from, and I could smell it all day.
Well, there was also the miniature golf course. There was LAX. There was a piano museum. There's all sorts of places.
Let's get real about that for a minute, though. I think that Leon is like a threat to national security.
Stop it.
I feel like Homeland Security is going to be looking for him because he's like hacked into the bank signs and the radio station at LAX and video games.
No. Let's back it up. You not think that he had things created or had help at those locations in order to make it happen?
Well, even if he's just paying people off, he's still the evil mastermind.
Who says he has to pay people off? I mean, people might owe him favors.
That's true, because he's Leon.
Exactly. So maybe Leon just greased the wheels with his charm.
Blackmail.
Whatever. However he did it, he got it done. Because the whole flyer with His Holiness says, "You're off your rocker if you don't look inside the locker." It's amazing.
What career do you think Leon went on to have after the Great All-Nighter? What do you think he did with his life?
He became a software developer, obviously. Obviously.
You're absolutely right.
He totally did. I mean, when you start pulling off things this big, you have to be involved in tech somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least the video game portion.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole lot about that video game. Anyway, I will tell you at the next part. All right, so you're bad.
My bad was honestly the stereotyping in the film. Blade, the character of Blade, he's the only Hispanic character in the film, and he's called Blade because he carries a switchblade around everywhere and looks threatening. He will go through the airport metal detector because of it, and he just looks dour and angry through the whole thing. But I think it was just that very much a stereotype, that he looks more like some type of gang member than everyone else in the movie.
I'm sort of with you along that same train. I mean, definitely a lot of fat shaming happening. I mean, Harold, the leader of the blue team, can't eat all night because he's on a diet and he weighs too much, and his girlfriend Lucille wants him to be able to take off his shirt at the beach this summer. And you definitely had a lot of that going throughout the film, you know.
You're way ahead of me on our next.
Oh, really? Put that as ugly? Oh, gosh. All right, so let's segue into your ugly then.
Yes. My ugly was, it's not just a little bit of fat shaming. It is the running joke throughout the whole film. And it's not just him. There are the two twins. What are they? The
Peggy and Lulu.
Peggy and Lulu on the red team. There are a couple of other examples, but it is constant. And in fact, the film ends on it, where Harold has to go and like take a handful of every plate on the buffet. He stuffs his face as they're trying to pull him away from it. Yeah, but I mean, he's just throwing it at his face. He's not even actually putting food in his mouth. He's just throwing it at himself. And it just gets disgusting, and it's just unfortunate that it would end on that note.
Fair enough. I think there is one really great part where Peggy and Lulu are at the disco and they are dancing in the middle of everyone and everyone is clapping and it's great. They're just having a really awesome, fun time with it. And it's not a self-conscious moment. It's just like, hey, we're out here and this is who we are and we're having a really great time. So that's actually very rare to see in a lot of movies.
And they don't seem to have body image issues. They seem to be totally fine with who they are.
Right.
But they're shown carrying around bags of food at one point, and they're just those little cues that we're meant to laugh at, that, oh, look, they're heavy because they eat too much. And same thing with Harold, that he's always hiding marshmallows and Oreos. And, you know, they, of course, at that time, people didn't seem to be having the discussions about other factors in people's weight. It's just about, hey, you just obviously eat too much. And unfortunately, that is played for heavy laughs throughout what is otherwise an extremely enjoyable film.
Right. I think my big ugly in this is that Disney didn't stamp their name on it, that they took it away and that they didn't stamp their name on it. And had they stamped their name on it, it might have been a larger success than it actually was. So that is definitely my big ugly. Disney, shame on you. So I mean, you got it right later. So kudos to you after that, because I don't want to diss Disney that much. Jeez.
Look, you've already got like Samsung.
No.
And
Let's
Harrison
not rehash. All of my people that I have probably offended at some point through this podcast.
You definitely don't need Disney lawyers getting together with the Samsung lawyers to come over to the house.
Hey, we have nothing, so come on over.
They'll just take our podcast mics.
Come on over. Yeah, maybe. That might not be such a bad idea.
They might not be the only ones that want to.
Right, exactly. Oh, boy. And that leads us into a really strange place. But instead of production notes with Parry, it's going to be production notes with Joe. Do you have anything to add to any of the production notes before I start?
Well, you asked me not to do research on this one because you had so many cool things that you wanted to tell me about that I looked up actors is what I was allowed to look up.
Oh, funny. I was allowed to look up. Wow. That really sounds like I wear the pants of the family.
You do.
Oh, geez. But here I have just like general numbers just to start out. So in the box office, it only raked in 2.9 million. I think it pretty much broke even. I don't even know what the exact budget was because it was rumored to have gone over budget. So IMDb gives it 6.5 out of 10 stars. Roger Ebert 1 out of 4 stars.
Ouch.
Yeah, it was a little rough, and I think it's one of those things that if you go into this movie and you think that you're going to get something of mass substance, you're wrong. This is a popcorn movie. This is definitely a movie that you are just eating some popcorn and you have it on in the background and you're watching it and you're just enjoying it for what it was, which was a super cheesy 80s movie.
Just don't eat marshmallows because the movie will make you feel bad about yourself for doing that.
No, eat the marshmallows all day. Eat the marshmallows.
And I think this is one, as you mentioned, that if you saw it when you were younger, you're going to have a close attachment to it. And you can come into it later and still really enjoy it, but you have to know that it is insane, that it is just a crazy movie.
It is. And it's actually written by and directed by Michael Nankin and David Wachter. They were, I think it's 23 and 24. Mm-hmm. They had actually done a short called Junior High School that gained the attention of, and it went on the film circuit.
And that had actually a very young Paula Abdul in it, in a very small part.
That's right, straight up. Now tell me, do you really want to love me forever?
Yes, I do.
That's the correct answer.
Yes, I've given it several times.
Even though I was one when that shit came out, because that was in 1978. And it gained the attention of Ron Miller, who was a Walt Disney World exec, who was in charge of things such as Tron, Black Hole, Black Cauldron, Freaky Friday, just to name a few. So this guy really knew how to pick them, basically. So Ron Miller said to Nankin and Wechter, like, go ahead, let's see what you can come up with in 6 months. And what they came up with is The Great All-Nighter. Right? And I think at one point it was called The All-Night Treasure Hunt. But Scavenger Hunt was released the year before.
Oh.
And I don't think did well. So then they renamed it to Midnight Madness.
And they never used the term scavenger hunt in the movie anywhere.
No. Because, scavenger hunts, you're supposed to go ahead and pick up a specific item.
Right.
Right? And this isn't. This is a little bit more, the clues lead you to another clue, leads you to another clue, leads you to the finish, another clue, and eventually you get to the finish line.
Right. You don't take anything.
Right.
Other than beer.
Right. Other than beer, exactly. And the green team actually drank real beer on the set. That was a real, actual beer.
I believe that from the Meat Machine.
Yeah. Oh, Meat Machine. MEATMACHINE. Meat Machine. Meat Machine. All right, break. Sorry.
Oh, I forgot that last part.
And if you've never seen the movie, you should see it just to see them.
Just to see the Meat Machine.
Do this craziness.
I think they also take the Pinball City proprietor's job because they pretty much wreck his entire business.
Oh, they do. Which is also Paul Rubin's business,
Yes.
a.k.a. early Pee Wee Herman. It's amazing. It's amazing cameo.
Yes, when he says, let's all try and act like adults about this. And those are pretty big words coming from a man who calls himself Pee Wee.
Yes, they are. But the deal with Michael Nankin and David Wechter is they really had done film since they were young together, like super duper young. And this was basically the last thing that they did together. They no longer, they did things individually, but as a team, this was the last thing because it was so poorly received that I think it sort of broke their little spirits a bit.
That can happen. Hollywood likes to eat its young.
Yeah. Now, I mean, in other news, they've all gone on to different things and better things, actually. Nankin produced a couple of different things for TV, like The Exorcist, the Van Helsing series, Defiance, Roar. He was the director of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, several episodes.
Right. So he did a lot of different things. Wechter went on to produce Friday Night Tykes, Ben and Teller's BS, even that reality show, the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders, as they're trying out.
The Penn and Teller show is actually great. I saw it years after it was released, but it's actually a really good show.
Yeah, so, I mean, they went on to do different things, and they're still very active.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't have such a great run with Midnight Madness when it first came out. Now, it became this cult following once it started getting picked up by, like, HBO.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to tell you that's where I saw it. Pretty young, as a matter of fact. And I sort of recalled this. I saw it when I was really young, and I recalled seeing it later on, like more like in my teens. And then I started tracking down the VHS. I really did. I tracked it down later on VHS.
Was it as hard to find as Kidco?
No. Kidco's pretty bad. Kidco's very difficult on VHS, or it was very difficult on VHS. I never had a VHS copy of Kidco, as a matter of fact.
Yes, if anyone ever finds one at a thrift store, we would love to know, because we have looked.
Yeah, I mean, they're out there now. They're out there now that it's on DVD.
Yeah, DVD, but, I think we need to have a great all-nighter looking for Kidco on VHS.
No. I've already had that great all-nighter. I'm fine. Thank you.
That great all-decade?
Yeah. Also, this is the first film that Michael J. Fox is in. Yes,
a very, very young Michael J. Fox, and it's in his first role, right?
In his first feature film role, right? He is he's 18, but they needed somebody who looked like 15 but was not a minor because they did a lot of night filming. So Michael J. Fox got the role.
He does a lot of scowling in the film.
Well, he does do a lot of scowling. I mean, he's supposed to be an angsty teenager.
He's
That's what
very
you're
angsty.
supposed to do.
In fact, in his first scene, I don't think he says anything. I think he just scowls and tries to get away from his brother, who keeps yanking him back.
Well, that's pretty much what his role was supposed to be. He was supposed to be Adam's brother Scott, younger brother Scott, and their parents were out of town, and it was Scott's birthday, and Adam wasn't paying him any attention. So
he hadn't told him he was going to be out all night doing this all-nighter. He just leaves him at home.
Well, remember, it was sort of last minute that the yellow team decided to play.
It was because they were getting Flinch away from his unattractive date, the poor girl, that they shut the door on her and take him away, and she's left to not know what happened to her date.
Exactly. So what's interesting is that in the credits in the very beginning, he's Michael Fox. But by the end of the credits, guess what he is? Michael J. Fox.
Really? So
Yeah.
It's different from beginning to end.
Different from
he had
beginning to
matured
end.
from throughout the production.
Apparently, he thought that J was very important. Alex P. Keaton.
Well, I think the first line of dialogue he speaks in the movie is, "This game is stupid. Who cares about it anyway?"
You want another neat little piece of trivia?
I would love.
You Back to the Future fanboy you.
Yes.
So when Dr. Emmett Smith says, "Great Scott," guess who's referring to?
Scott. Nice. That's
Yes.
good.
Yep.
Well, see, I had theorized that because his brother is such a shit to him throughout this movie that maybe that's why he decided to befriend an old man and hang out with him all the time and his dog instead of being around his brother. And he kind of looks like the brother who's vanishing in Back to the Future in the picture. So maybe, he's kind of like, fuck it, let him vanish. I hate that bastard.
You're so ridiculous. Mickey, there's a Mickey nod. Do you know what the Mickey nod is?
Mickey
MICKEYMOUSE.
Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, there's a nod in there to Disney. Do you know what it is?
I do not.
So the first clue, the C is reversed, as I
Yeah.
say, Tari is mixed up and blind.
It's when they go
see
to
the stars.
Yeah, and they go up to Griffith Park.
No,
or to Griffith Observatory.
that's where they eventually end up.
Yeah.
But the white team goes to the Stars of Hollywood, the Walk of Fame.
Right, and they
They end up on the star for
Mickey Mouse.
exactly.
Yes.
But I really want to take it way back before we start talking about more stuff about the actual film. The film was actually inspired by an actual all-nighter in LA. By
Really?
several series of all-nighters in LA.
Oh, so this was a thing.
This was a thing. This was a very big thing in 1973. So much of a thing that the newspaper got a hold of it.
I think you could do that in LA in 1973, but you couldn't have done that when I lived there in 2003.
So it was originally started by graphic designer Don Luskin. And in 1973, he went ahead and with 24 players, and he did this sort of like this all-nighter type thing. And then he, I don't know how Patrick Carlisle and Sherry Chung went into it, but by the second one, they were also listed on there as well.
Okay.
And then they did a couple of other ones after that. It was a real big thing to do. And the invitations were in the LA, I think it's the LA Times. Am I right about that?
Do you think this is where Dave Barry was inspired to do the one he does in Miami?
So, I mean, we could talk about cultural impact all day long, and that's actually within the next section. But yeah, so all of this gaming really spawned a whole nother section and level of games.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I have one, I think, last piece of trivia for you.
Okay.
Before we head into soundtrack. The Starfire game, when they're
which
at
is
Pinball City.
Which looks a lot like Star Wars.
Well, here's the thing. You were supposed to be seated, and it was like a half enclosed console.
Okay.
So that console that they show was specifically built for the film.
Yeah. Well, it looks a lot like Star Wars, where it's obviously TIE fighters that they're shooting at, and on the back of the console it looks like an X-Wing. So it's very Star Wars-y. But I just want to know how Leon hacked himself into the game, where he has that video of himself in there. And also how he got the beard on Madame Leona. But
Madame Leona was probably made for him.
yes.
Right.
But the Starfighter game, that again, part of the fun wackiness.
Yes, completely wacky. But I think that's all I have for production notes. Unless we want to talk about a couple of the actors in the film, I'm totally down to talk about that.
Well, I know I mentioned Blade, who is Sal Lopez, and the man has worked. He has like 125 entries in IMDb, and he was in like Full Metal Jacket and Man on Fire, so he was in a bunch of stuff. Crazy enough, the guy who plays who's the Pabst Blue Ribbon guy, Blaylock, I think is his name.
Blaylock.
Which their names are crazy. The football players are Gerber, Armpit, Blaylock, Levitas, and Kudzo. Levitas, that's what it was.
And Kudzo.
Well, Dirk Blocker, he's been in Brooklyn Nine-Nine lately, has been a big thing. And leader of the Red Team, Maggie Roswell, she was in a bunch of episodes of The Simpsons. She was Maude Flanders and Helen Lovejoy. So that's crazy. That's pretty cool. But the one that got me was Andy Tennant, who played Melio, one of the henchmen. He's directed all kinds of stuff. He directed Hitch, but he's like the king of high school TV shows. He directed one episode of the Ferris Bueller TV show and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the TV series. But Parker Lewis Can't Lose. He directed like 5 episodes of that. So he gains huge points in my book for Parker Lewis.
Well, he gains huge points in my book because he was the executive producer for ESPN 60 from 2011 to 2060.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he did all of that. And that's
good stuff.
I mean, as a producer, he might not be in there on the day-to-day, but to be associated with it, that's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Also, a little bit of a shout out to Patricia Alice Albright, who is Lucille, Harold's girlfriend. She actually was the voice of Pizzazz, Gem and the Holograms, in the movie and the TV show.
I'm going to choke to death.
Don't choke. So she was Pizzazz. And
That's
funny
awesome.
enough, her and Maggie Roswell, so the leader of the Red Team, Donna, they're both on the New Kids on the Block cartoon.
Yes, that's right. I did see that.
They're both on the New Kids on the Block cartoon. So I wonder if they like had a reunion there, or if it's just voice work and you just go into a studio, or what the deal was.
That's awesome, though. Yeah. I don't know.
I think we are neglecting though 3 main folks, honestly.
Well, we do have to give props to the late great Stephen Furst, who was Howard. He unfortunately passed away last summer. But he was in Animal House, and he had a long-running role on Babylon 5.
St. Elsewhere.
Yeah, so...
The Dream Team.
Yes.
The Dream Team. So that's him, and then, of course, Michael J. Fox. If you don't know who Michael J. Fox is,
I feel like he did a few things after.
He did a few things. He just did a couple of things, Back to the Future, Family Ties, Secret of My Success.
Familiar, sort of.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, he did all right for himself.
He did okay.
He did okay.
Was he in any War, right? With Sean Penn. What's that one with Sean Penn? It's Casualties of War.
Yes, that's it.
Man, old age is a bitch.
A little bit. That's why I'm wearing glasses now.
I've worn glasses since I was 8. That's such a null factor. It makes no sense.
It's a lot different when you have to just start wearing them.
All right, Vane.
Well, it looks like Grandpa when I go to sign for stuff at restaurants, but
I bet you think
I have to suddenly put on glasses.
You're so vain. Back to Midnight Madness.
Yeah.
Let's move on to David Naughton, who was also in An American Werewolf in London, who at the time of the filming of this movie was also the Dr. Pepper spokesperson.
Yes.
So when you see him drinking the Dr. Pepper in Midnight Madness, you're sort of like, wow, that label is very prominent. Well, that's because he was the spokesperson for Dr. Pepper.
Well, then who was the spokesperson for Cheetos? Because they kept appearing too.
Cheetos?
No, Lay's. Lay's and Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Pabst Blue Ribbon. Oh.
In a scene that I think was later stolen for Strange Brew, Dirk Blocker's character ends up in a tank of Pabst.
That's right.
But I thought it was actually fun that he was the one who recognized the song. He actually played the song, and earlier on, the nerds had been saying that jocks should be kicked off campus, or football should be eliminated from campuses because jocks don't appreciate art and music. And then they're the ones who actually can play the song in the piano museum, even if it is just the Pabst Blue Ribbon song. Yes.
Yep. Oh, and Eddie Denzine. Sorry, Eddie Denzine. I don't know how we missed you. I mean, he was in things like War Games, Grease 1 and 2, Polar Express, oddly on the Weird Al show.
Yes. Now he's famous.
There you go.
That is fame right there.
And of course, we've mentioned Paul Rubens, aka PB Herman, had a cameo that was perfect for him in this movie.
Cowboy outfit with really furry chaps.
I feel like he revived that. He had to have at some point in his career.
Well, I loved his gun. He has this gun in it that shoots change.
Quarters.
So when you want your quarters for your games, he comes over and he puts it in your hand and shoots your hand full of quarters.
Awesome. It's amazing.
I need one.
No, you don't.
For next time we go to the arcade.
No. We don't do those things. Never.
We need to find an arcade first.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of places can help us out with that. But yeah, so I think we covered, or at least highlighted. I know there are a couple of other actors who did have other pieces.
But it is one of those great movies where a lot of the actors did go on to do other things. And this was early in their careers. Oh, are we talking about other things? Legal trouble things.
Yeah, there's definitely one cast member who has a not so great awesome side. Sorry, Flinch, Joel P. Kennedy, or Kenny, right? Joel P. Kenny. Yeah, sex offender, Arizona.
And unfortunately, it's
locked up.
Yeah, it's multiple offenses. It's not just one of those like, hey, she was 2 days from being 18. It's a list.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's not so great.
I think he's the groundskeeper at the prison right now.
Something like that. I can't.
Yeah, and the unfortunate irony is that throughout the film, he is encouraged to stand up and to be a man and to take charge and to get confident. And at one point, he basically carjacks a car with two girls in it so that they can get to their next destination. And the girls are laughing about it, but he basically takes their car with them in it to get to the next destination.
Giggling all the whole way.
Yeah, and it didn't seem so problematic before we knew his history.
Knew.
Yeah, it's
until you knew. Then the magicalness suddenly fades away.
Yeah. A lot of his scenes become much more difficult to watch.
Well, he's not in a lot, so let's just take it like that.
True.
And that's a good segue for Soundtrack Smashes. Hey.
Well, other than the Pabst Blue Ribbon song, I can only think of one song that could possibly be the smash in the movie.
Well, yes, but there's actually great background behind the soundtrack that is not available on any form of media at all.
It was never released.
It's actually the work of a father and son duo. So David Wexner and his father, Julius Wexner. God, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. I don't mean to. So it's a father-son duo. And David wrote all the music and lyrics. And Julius wrote the arrangements and the score. And Julius Wexner was a part of the Baja Marimba Band, who was touring with Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I know. So and this was his first musical score that he'd ever done. And he did it with his son. So I think that's pretty amazing.
That is very cool. That they could get along that well to work together.
Right. So the title track is really the winner here. And it is sung by Julie Fine. And Midnight Madness is super catchy, and they lead right off the entire movie with it, and you just want to keep singing it all the time. And we've linked it to our website because you need to actually hear the song.
It will get deeply in your head.
So deeply, in fact, that if you really are dying to have it in a physical form, there's only one way to get it, and it's only the demo, and here's how. It is a bonus track released on the junior high school CD release that was only 1,000 copies. So it's a demo track of Midnight Madness only on the junior high school CD.
And of course,
limited copies of 1,000.
Of course, you do have it.
I do have it because I'm that person.
How could you not?
I don't know. This it's very infectious, that song.
It truly is. And again, it's that kind of song. It's complete bubblegum, but it is the best kind of bubblegum.
It's not bubblegum pop. It's still disco.
Yes, it is disco,
Yeah.
but I'm saying it's sweet and saccharine like bubblegum.
It is. It is. So I guess we can go ahead and talk about cultural impacts, and this actually segues in a great way. Helter Skelter came out with a song that samples the original Midnight Madness song, also called Midnight Madness. How crazy is that? Now, that one will not be on our website because it contains a lot of curse words and things that are not okay. But if you want to look it up by yourself, it is on Spotify. I'm sure it's on Google Play. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. But you definitely want to go ahead and check that out as well, because if you're a fan of this movie, the sampling makes you giggle for sure.
Yeah, it's I didn't know what to make of it at first, but
I still don't know what to make of it.
Just the fact that someone liked the movie that much to make that song.
Yeah, it pretty much sums it up right there. And then the rest of cultural impact is, as they say, history. I mean, the game is the movie is loosely based on Midnight Madness.
What?
Yeah, all of these scavenger things to get you to the finish line.
Yeah.
Right. So the game is based on a Stanford college student came up with the game, and that's based on the game. But his game is based off of Midnight Madness. So there are different corporations that still do a lot of these different type of scavenger hunts.
Yes.
Especially out in the West Coast area. So the culture, even our own South Florida, we have this thing called Tropic Hunt. Well, I have to believe it's been going on for 20 plus years. I have to believe some of this came from the origin of Midnight Madness.
I would believe it.
It's very similar. A clue leads you to another clue, leads you another clue, leads you to the finish line. So anything that you sort of like in this sort of realm is really linked back to Midnight Madness, is linked back to Don Luskin, Patrick Carlisle, and Sherry Chung. I really deeply believe that.
I would completely agree that, because I don't know what the history of scavenger hunts is prior to this, prior to the ones that were created in LA in the early 70s that you were talking about. I'm sure they existed, but I don't know if they'd ever been portrayed in media before. So I can see where this would be the root of other media references like the game, and other real life examples.
Right. And it is. I mean, that's...
again, I'm thinking from a 21st century perspective. There's not like legal issues around these, like the liability for accidents or death.
Well, think about it. We do the Tropic Hunt down here in South Florida.
Yeah.
So it's the same concept. Everybody knows what the rules are, and they're participating at their own free will.
Because if you behaved like they do in Midnight Madness, where cars are destroyed and hotel rooms are wrecked, I don't know if it would be okay to do it. Because people are almost killed on several occasions.
Right. Well, I'm sure it's not to that necessarily level. I don't know. Things might get a bit competitive, but... yeah, so all of these places still do this.
Well, I think anyone who is in charge of one of these needs a Game Master t-shirt like Leon has.
I need a Game Master t-shirt. For Christmas, okay?
Okay, so noted. I might have to make it myself.
So I decided to show you this movie because it was just one of my favorites growing up. It really was. It's just one of those good popcorn, cheesy movies. That's okay. It's just good fun. And that's really what the 80s is about, is good fun and having a great time and doing wacky crap like playing a game all night led by some guy named Leon. I feel like that's really what the 80s encompasses, aside from a whole lot of cocaine. Like, that's what the 80s encompasses.
Well, maybe that's how all the neighbors in the building stay up all night is maybe Leon was passing out more than Lay's potato chips and Dr. Pepper. And The neighbors are all made up of famous what's-is and what's her names. There are all these people that you recognize from a million other shows, but you never know what their names are.
Right, or the voice of Tigger.
And Piglet.
Oh, no, sorry, it was Piglet. You're
yeah,
right.
Yeah, the voice of Piglet. And he was in a million things. I don't even remember his name.
Show?
But
I don't
yeah.
remember his name offhand.
Same thing with Grimhouse, the landlady. Keeps trying to throw him out. She's been in tons of things.
Yep.
So it's got a great cast of sort of the old Hollywood character actor, what's their names?
I know. So why did it bomb? I don't get it.
I don't know what their marketing campaign was.
Well,
so I have to
and
wonder.
that's just it, is that I don't think if they were under the Disney label, their marketing campaign would have been completely different versus Buena Vista. Just saying.
Maybe because a free ticket wasn't included in every can of Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Pabst Blue Ribbon. See, that's like the third time. I'm so stuck on it. I can't even help myself, you guys. I'm super stuck on it. And
it does play
a
huge role in the film, though.
So I have to say this. If you're going to watch Midnight Madness, do so with a grain of salt. It is just supposed to be a fun movie. Don't take it for all its foibles. Don't look at it as this statement piece on life. Just take a look of it as, hey, I want to see what Michael J. Fox did when he was 18.
He gets thrown out the back of a 70s van.
Exactly. just take a look at it in that perspective and not take it too seriously.
And hey, 2 words, miniature golf.
Yes, miniature golf does play a factor.
There is a whole mini golf scene.
Yes, there is a whole mini golf scene.
No, I think what you're saying is very true. It's you don't need to approach it with any degree of seriousness. No. It is just purely fun, but in the best kind of way. In fact, I know it affected you so deeply that when we got to L.A., when we were at the airport, the first thing and you had never been to L.A. before, the first thing you said was, "Look, it's from Midnight Madness." And then we went around to all of the Midnight Madness locations we could find.
Yes, it was amazing. It really was, because I think that's one of the things where you have seen a movie, it's been ingrained, and then you get to see the places to where they like pulled up and you're like, Hollywood Towers? Wait a minute, was this street here before? And you start asking yourself all those questions, and then you just want to go and see the movie again. And I have to say, I probably watch that movie almost every year now that I have it on TVT. I watch it quite frequently, which there might be something wrong with me in doing so, but I guess that's why I know the Pabst Blue Ribbon song pretty well. That's also why I know how to chant the Meat Machine really well and sing the disco Midnight Madness very well. But it's infectious and it gets to you, and that's what it's all about, is seeing all these movies that made an impact on the significant other's life.
And to be honest, there are a lot of films from that era that are unwatchable, that are just that bad. And this is not one of them. No, it's much more fun than that.
Exactly. So thank you guys so much for listening. And thank you so much for downloading and rating and reviewing our podcast. We're seeing those numbers creep up, and that's really awesome. We ask that you please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. Check out our website at youhaven'tseenwhatmovie.com. We're going to throw up some links to the Midnight Madness DVD and things like that. Oh, I totally forgot. There was a book.
What?
There was a book afterwards. Hard to come by.
Wait, like a novelization?
A novelization of it. Yeah, I think the last thing that I saw was for like $80 or $100 out there. But there is a book. It's written by Wright. Well, obviously, right? Anyway. Check out our website, youhaven'tseenwhatmovie.com, and we'll have links to Midnight Madness, the DVD, as well as the streaming version. If you haven't seen it yet, you should see it. It's totally worth a couple of bucks to get it streaming, and then you'll end up wanting to buy it. That's kind of how that goes. And our social media at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at youhaven'tseenwhatmovie. And like we say, let us know if there's any movies out there that you want us to review or that you're interested in us seeing. For the most part, we're really trying to do different movies that the other one hasn't seen so that we can have authentic reactions to a lot of the stuff that we're finding out together.
And we're only doing 80s movies at the moment, but that might change later on.
Yeah, that might change. We got to get you millennials on board, so we might do some 90s movies. This one is definitely reaching back into a time when, yeah, Disney didn't even want to be Disney. If you have any stories about how this particular movie impacted you, please feel free to share with us. We would love to hear your thoughts. I know I would love to hear your thoughts as a fangirl of this movie. And so would Parry, because we find it all deeply interesting on how movies actually impact our lives.
Absolutely. And I have one closing thought about Dirk Blocker, who plays Blaylock. I think he was the model for Homer Simpson. If you look at how he looks and how he talks about this was the greatest day of my life after he drinks all of the Pabst Blue Ribbon, I think he's proto-Homer.
He could be.
Absolutely.
And on that note, remember,
be kind.
rewind.
Bye.
Bye.